The massive chamber buzzed with thousands of alien voices speaking in languages that sounded like music, growls, and electronic beeps. Ambassador Kretok of the Voxery Empire stood at his crystal podium, his body shimmering like a living diamond under the bright lights. He looked at the star map floating in the center of the room and pointed at a small, yellow star. "The dead zone still gives us nothing," he said, his voice carrying across the huge room. Sol 3 has been silent for over 100 years now. No messages, no ships, no signals at all. General Thaxmer, a giant lizard-like creature with scales that changed color when he was angry, scratched his chin with one massive claw. "My scouts flew close to their system last month," he rumbled. "Same old readings. Basic radio waves, no spaceships, no weapons we can detect."
"How maybe?"
"They all died," laughed Counselor Vexnari, her purple tentacles wiggling with amusement.
"At least."
"Short-lived species often kill themselves before they learn to travel between stars." The other aliens in the chamber started laughing too. Some made sounds like bells ringing, others growled like angry beasts, and a few clicked their mandibles together rapidly. They had been having this same conversation for decades, always reaching the same conclusion about the strange, silent world called Earth. "Remember when they first answered our signals?" asked Ambassador Kretok. "Sent back mathematical sequences, prime numbers, even basic physics equations. We thought they might be interesting." "That was over a century ago," said General Thaxmer. "Since then, nothing. Complete silence. Even our most advanced sensors show only a primitive world with no space technology." "Perhaps we should send a fleet to investigate," suggested Counselor Vexnari. "The Zephyrian Empire has been looking for new worlds to add to their collection." The debate continued for hours, just as it had for years. Earth remained the galaxy's biggest mystery and biggest joke. The aliens called it the dead zone because nothing ever happened there. Some species had even started using as quiet as Sol 3. It's an insult meaning someone was stupid or dead, but Earth was neither stupid nor dead. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that existed on no maps and appeared in no government records, Commander Park Ji-ho sat in a chair that had been his second home for the past 15 years. The walls around him were covered with screens showing star charts, alien ship movements, and intercepted communications from across the galaxy. His dark eyes never moved from the main display, where he watched the Galactic Council debate humanity's fate. He could understand every word they spoke, even though they were using 12 different alien languages. Humanity had spent over a century learning to listen. Sir called Lieutenant Kim Nari from her station across the room. Her fingers danced across a keyboard that controlled sensors hidden throughout the solar system. "The Zephyrian fleet is moving. 300 ships, all heading toward Earth. They should arrive in 47 days. Ji-ho nodded slowly, but didn't look away from the screen. He had been expecting this day for a long time. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors. They found worlds with primitive species and turned them into slave colonies. They had done it to over 100 worlds, and they thought Earth would be number 101. "Alert all stations," Ji-ho said quietly. "Send the activation codes to Lunar Base, Mars Station, and all the hidden platforms. Operation Stillwater is now active." Around the room, dozens of other humans began working at their stations. Some sent coded messages to secret bases on the Moon and Mars. Others activated weapon systems that had been hidden in asteroids for decades. Still others began powering up energy shields that could make entire cities invisible. Dr. Lee Minho, project's chief scientist, walked over to Ji-ho's chair. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his entire life working on humanity's greatest secret. "The probability manipulators are ready," he said. "All weapon systems are online. The fleet won't know what hit them." "They still think we're primitive," Ji-ho replied, finally looking away from the screen. "They see no cities, no ships, no technology, have no idea what the Quiet Ones have been building." Lieutenant Kim Nari looked up from her controls. "Sir, should we warn them? Give them a chance to turn back?" Ji-ho considered this for a moment. For over a century, humanity had listened to the galaxy's conversations. They had learned about wars, conquests, and the destruction of entire civilizations. They had heard species beg for mercy and received none. They had watched the strong destroy the weak simply because they could. No warnings, he said finally. They've had 100 years to learn that silence doesn't mean weakness. It's time to show them what happens when you mistake stillness for death. The countdown began. 47 days until the Zephyrian fleet arrived. 47 days until humanity revealed that the dead zone was very much alive and very, very dangerous. In the depths of space, the Zephyrian fleet moved steadily toward Earth, confident in their superiority and completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. The Zephyrian war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of deadly metal insects. 300 ships of different sizes hung in the black void, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. The smallest fighters were as big as city buses, while the largest battleships stretched for miles and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the sensor readings with confusion written across his scaled face. His yellow eyes, which could see in complete darkness, narrowed as he studied the data. "This makes no sense," he muttered, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the recycled air. "What troubles you, Admiral?" asked Commander Vexmal, a younger Zephyrian, whose scales still showed the bright green of youth instead of the battle-scarred gray of experience. "Look at these readings," Kextar said, pointing at the holographic display floating between them. "The entire system appears completely dead. There's no artificial energy signatures, no spacecraft, no orbital stations. Even their homeworld shows almost no electromagnetic activity. The fleet moved slowly inward, passing the outer planets with their sensors sweeping every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris. Jupiter's massive form loomed ahead, its red spot swirling like a giant eye. But their instruments detected nothing artificial in its vicinity. Perhaps they destroyed themselves in a nuclear war," suggested Commander Vexmal. "We've seen it happen before. These short-lived species often can't handle the knowledge that they're not alone in the universe." Admiral Kextar's scales rippled with what might have been disappointment. "I was hoping for at least some sport. The reports said they had achieved basic spaceflight over a century ago. I expected orbital defenses, primitive weapons, maybe even a few warships to crush." The fleet continued its approach, moving past Mars with its ancient dead surface. Some of the Zephyrian scientists pointed their instruments at the red planet, detecting old traces of terraforming attempts that had failed long ago. "Still no signs of current civilization, sir," reported the sensor operator, his voice carrying the boredom of someone who had expected a battle and found only emptiness. "We're detecting some unusual asteroid formations in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. They appear to be natural, but the patterns are somewhat regular." "Probably just coincidence," Kextar replied with a dismissive wave of his clawed hand. "These primitive species rarely have the technology to move asteroids. Continue the approach." What the Zephyrians didn't know was that every movement of their fleet was being watched by sensors hidden inside those unusual asteroids. Each piece of space debris that looked natural was actually a sophisticated monitoring station, recording everything from engine signatures to crew communications, deep beneath Earth's surface. Commander Park Jiho sat in his command center, watching the alien fleet's approach with the same calm expression he had worn for decades. The main screen showed the positions of all 300 enemy ships, along with detailed analysis of their weapons, shields, and crew numbers. "They're not even trying to hide," observed Dr. Lee Minho, shaking his head in amazement. "Standard conquest formation, shields down, weapons powered but not ready. They think they're on a sightseeing tour." Lieutenant Kimnari looked up from her station, where she was tracking the fleet's communications. "Sir, they're discussing whether to bother with orbital bombardment or just land troops directly. They seem ... bored." Jiho almost smiled. "Almost. They see exactly what we want them to see. A dead world with no defenses, no technology, no threat. They have no idea they're flying through the most sophisticated defense network in the galaxy." The Zephyrian fleet reached Earth's orbit and took up positions around the blue planet. From their perspective, they saw a world that looked peaceful but primitive. White clouds swirled over blue oceans and green continents. Cities were visible, but they appeared dark and abandoned. No lights, no energy readings, no signs of active civilization. "It's almost sad," said Commander Vexmal as he watched Earth turn slowly beneath them. Had such potential when they first contacted us. Those mathematical sequences showed real intelligence. "Intelligence without strength is worthless," Admiral Kekstar replied. "Begin launching reconnaissance teams. I want to know if there are any survivors down there, and if so, how many slaves we can take." The landing craft began launching from the larger ships, small shuttles that could carry 50 soldiers each. They headed for the major population centers, expecting to find either ruins or frightened primitives hiding in caves back in the hidden command center. Akko watched the enemy shuttles descend toward Earth's surface. Around him, dozens of human operators sat at their stations, fingers hovering over controls that could unleash weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Sir Kimnari said quietly, "Should we activate the surface defenses? We could destroy those shuttles before they land." "No," Jiho replied. "Let them come. Let them see what they expect to see. The longer they believe we're helpless, the more complete their shock will be when we show them the truth." Dr. Lee Minho nodded approvingly. "The probability manipulators are charged and ready. All stealth systems are functioning perfectly. They still can't detect our real cities or weapon platforms," Good Jiho said. "In a few hours, they'll learn that the quiet ones have been very busy while they were making noise." The Zephyrian landing craft touched down in empty cities, ready to begin their conquest of what they believed was a defenseless world. The Zephyrian landing craft touched down in the middle of what used to be called Times Square in New York City. The massive metal shuttle created a small crater in the cracked asphalt, sending up clouds of dust that had been settling for decades. Commander Texvar stepped out first, his rifle ready, followed by 40 other Zephyrian soldiers. The city around them looked like a graveyard. Tall buildings stretched toward the sky, but their windows were dark and empty. Rusted cars sat abandoned. In the streets, their tires flat and their paint faded. Weeds grew through cracks in the sidewalk, and everything was covered in a thin layer of dust that made it look like no one had lived there for years. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha." Texvar spoke into his communicator. "The city appears completely abandoned. No signs of life, no energy readings, no movement. It's like they all just disappeared." Admiral Kekstar's voice crackled back through the radio. "Understood, Commander. Continue your sweep. Look for any signs of what happened to them." The Zephyrian soldiers moved through the empty streets, their boots echoing off the silent buildings. Some of them kicked at the abandoned cars, while others peered through broken windows into dark shops and restaurants. Everything looked normal except for the complete absence of people. "Sir," called one of the younger soldiers, "I'm detecting some kind of transmission. It's very weak, but it's definitely artificial." Texvar held up his hand, and the entire squad stopped moving. In the silence, they could hear it a soft, repeating tone broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It started as simple beeps, then became a pattern. Numbers, mathematical sequences. "Command, we're receiving structured signals," Texvar reported, his voice showing the first hint of interest since landing. "It's definitely not natural. Someone or something is trying to communicate." The signals grew stronger and more complex. Prime numbers gave way to the Fibonacci sequence, then to basic physics equations, then to chemistry formulas. Within an hour, the transmissions had evolved into something that sounded almost like language. Then, impossibly, they became language. "Welcome to Earth," said a voice speaking perfect Zephyrian. "I am Commander Park Jiho of the Terran Defense Force. We have been waiting for you." Every Zephyrian in the landing party froze. Their weapons came up instinctively, but there was nothing to shoot at. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Back on the flagship, Admiral Kekstar nearly fell out of his command chair. "Impossible," he snarled. "Our sensors show no advanced technology, no civilization, no defenses. How can they be speaking our language?" "Your sensors show exactly what we wanted them to show," Jiho's voice replied calmly, somehow reaching every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "We have spent 103 years listening to your communications, learning your languages, studying your technologies. We chose silence, not from fear, but from wisdom. Suddenly, every holographic display on every Zephyrian ship activated without permission. The screens showed Earth as it really was not the dead world their sensors had detected, but a planet alive with hidden cities protected by energy shields that bent light around them. Vast underground complexes stretched beneath the surface. Weapon platforms disguised as asteroids filled the space around. Earth, the moon itself, was revealed to be honeycombed with installations and defense systems. "This is a trick, Admiral," Kekstar shouted, his scales turning bright red with rage. "Some kind of illusion or computer virus." "No trick," Jiho replied. "Oh, no virus. This is simply what happens when you make the mistake of thinking silence means weakness. We learned something very important from studying your species and others like you over the past century." The holographic displays showed more details. Hidden cities beneath the Earth's surface where millions of humans lived and worked. Massive factories producing technology decades ahead of anything in the galactic database. Shipyards where vessels unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen were being built and launched. "You see," Jiho continued, his voice remaining calm despite the chaos erupting on the Zephyrian ships. "We discovered that in the galaxy, the loudest voices are rarely the most dangerous ones. The species that make the most noise, that brag about their conquests and their power, are often the ones with the most to prove." Commander Texfar looked around at the apparently empty city with new eyes. "Sir," he whispered into his communicator, "if they can make an entire planet invisible to our sensors, what else can they do?" "We spent our century of silence learning," Jiho answered, somehow hearing the whispered question. "We learned your weaknesses, your technologies, your battle strategies. We learned which species were conquerors and which were peaceful. We learned who to trust and who to fear." The holographic displays showed human ships emerging from their hiding places throughout the solar system. They didn't look like the sleek, curved vessels of most galactic civilizations. Instead, they were angular, blocky, and covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and change as the Zephyrians watched. "Most importantly," Jiho said, "we learned that the galaxy respects only strength. While you were conquering primitive worlds and declaring yourself superior, we were building something you've never seen before." Admiral Kekstar's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "You dare deceive the Zephyrian Empire? You have conquered 100 worlds. Your primitive species will burn for this insult." "Which primitive?" Jiho's voice carried a note of genuine amusement. "Admiral, you're about to learn why assumptions make for very poor military strategy." The revelation was complete. Earth was not dead, not primitive, and definitely not defenseless. Admiral Kekstar's rage boiled over like a volcano erupting. Scales turned from gray to bright crimson as he slammed his clawed fist on the command console. "You think your tricks and illusions frighten the mighty Zephyrian Empire?" he roared. "Into the communication system. We have burned 100 worlds to ash. Your pathetic species will be nothing but smoke and memories when we are finished." "Primitive humans playing games," snarled Commander Vexmill, his own scales shifting too. An angry orange. "Let us show them what real power looks like. All ships, charge weapons and raise shields." Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, 300 warships began powering up their devastating plasma cannons. Energy shields shimmered to life around each vessel, creating protective barriers that had deflected the weapons of countless civilizations. The sight was terrifying, beautiful columns of deadly light, preparing to rain destruction on the world below. But they were already too late. The objects that the Zephyrians had dismissed as space debris and random asteroids began to move with sudden purpose. Hundreds of shapes throughout the solar system revealed their true nature as the camouflage fell away. What had looked like chunks of rock were actually human ships, their dark angular forms unlike anything in the galactic databases. "Sir," the Zephyrian sensor operator called out, his voice cracking with disbelief, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple launch platforms are coming online. Energy readings are off our scales. Deep beneath the Earth's surface." Lieutenant Kim Nair's fingers moved across her control panel like a pianist playing a deadly symphony. Status lights changed from red to green as hidden weapon systems that had been sleeping for decades suddenly came to life. Stellar Defense Grid activated, she reported to Commander Jiho. All platforms report ready. Probability manipulators charged to full power. Jiho looked at the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet arranged in their standard attack formation. They had positioned themselves exactly where human battle computers had predicted they would. Fire, he commanded. The response was immediate and absolutely overwhelming. Beams of pure energy lanced out from hidden installations on Earth, the Moon, Mars, and throughout the asteroid belt. But these were not the familiar plasma weapons that every galactic civilization used. These beams were something entirely new, something that made the watching Zephyrians gasp in shock and terror. The first beam struck Admiral Kekstar's flagship directly in the center of its powerful energy shields. The Zephyrians expected the beam to splash harmlessly against their defenses, as thousands of enemy attacks had done before. Instead, the beam passed through the shields as if they were not even there, creating a perfectly round hole in the ship's thick armor plating. "Shields are still up," the confused sensor operator reported. But the beam went right through them. "That's impossible."
The beam
Had carved through the flagship's hull with surgical precision, destroying the main reactor but somehow avoiding every crew compartment. The massive ship went dark as its power systems died, but not a single Zephyrian had been killed. Kekstar gasped, staring at his dead control panels. "Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons," Jiho's voice explained calmly as the demonstration continued around them. "These are not energy weapons. They are probability manipulators. Weapons that temporarily change the basic rules of reality itself." 50 more Zephyrian ships suffered the same fate in the space of 10 minutes. Precise surgical strikes that disabled their reactors, destroyed their weapons, and cut their engines, but somehow avoided harming the crews inside. The beams seemed to know exactly where to hit and exactly how much damage to cause. Dr. Lee Minho watched the tactical display with quiet satisfaction. 100 years of research, he said to no one in particular. We turned science fiction into science fact. Commander Vexmel watched in horror as his own ship's weapons were sliced off by a beam that cut through metal like it was made of soft butter. "Admiral, we need to retreat. This technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered. No retreat." Kekstar screamed, but his voice carried no authority now. His flagship was powerless, drifting in space like a metal tomb. Human weapons continued their work with terrifying efficiency. The hidden ships that had revealed themselves began moving in coordinated patterns, their strange angular forms seeming to bend space around them. Some Zephyrian vessels simply vanished from sensors, only to reappear seconds later with their weapons systems completely destroyed. "They're not trying to kill us," one young Zephyrian soldier whispered. "They could destroy us all, but they're just taking away our ability to fight." The truth of those words became clear as the last functional Zephyrian weapon went silent. 300 warships, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, now floated helplessly in Earth's orbit. Their crews were alive and unharmed, but their ships were nothing more than expensive metal coffins. "This is your only warning," Jiho's voice broadcast to every disabled ship. "Turn to your empire. Tell them that Earth is not dead, not primitive, and definitely not defenseless. Tell them that the quiet ones had been very busy while everyone else was making noise." The demonstration was over. The Zephyrian fleet had been defeated without losing a single life, showing a level of technological sophistication that left the watching galaxy speechless with shock. In less than 30 minutes, humanity had announced its presence to the universe in the most dramatic way possible. The news of the Zephyrian fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the great meeting halls of 1,000 worlds, alien leaders watched the recorded footage. With growing terror, the mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of over 100 planets, had been crushed in less than 30 minutes by weapons that passed through their shields like they were made of air. Ambassador Kretok stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his crystal body dim and flickering with fear. Around him, representatives from dozens of species whispered in their native tongues, their voices filled with worry and confusion. "The humans have agreed to meet with us," he announced, his voice carrying poorly disguised relief. They are sending a delegation to the neutral station at Kepler 442. They say they wish to discuss terms for joining the galactic community. Terms. General Thaxmer's scales shifted to a nervous yellow color. Since when do newly discovered species get to set terms? We are the established powers here. Since they've demonstrated they can disable our most powerful fleet without breaking a sweat, replied Counselor Vexnari, her tentacles writhing anxiously. Perhaps we should listen to what they have to say. 3 months later, the neutral space station at Kepler 442 buzzed with activity unlike anything in its history. Ships from every major galactic power had arrived to witness this unprecedented meeting. Security forces from a dozen species patrolled the corridors. Though everyone wondered what good their weapons would do against technology that could ignore energy shields, Commander Park Ji-ho walked through the station's main corridor with calm confidence, his simple gray uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and armor worn by the alien representatives. Behind him came Dr. Lee Min-ho, Lieutenant Kim Nari, and 10 other humans who had spent their lives preparing for this moment. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the humans entered. These were the beings who had humiliated the Zephyrian Empire, the mysterious species that had remained hidden for over a century while secretly watching and learning. They looked so ordinary, so fragile compared to the massive aliens around them, yet everyone in the room knew they possessed weapons beyond imagination. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Ji-ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community. But we join as equals, not as subjects or junior partners. Ambassador. Krytox's crystal form flickered nervously. Your demonstration of power was quite impressive, Commander Ji-ho, but surely you understand that integration into galactic society requires compromise, negotiation, and respect for established traditions. The only compromise we offer is this, Ji-ho replied, his tone remaining calm but firm. We will share our defensive technologies with any species that agrees to our terms. No more conquest fleets sent to subjugate primitive worlds. No more assumption that silence means weakness. No more exploitation of species that cannot defend themselves. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in anger, while others made sounds like steam escaping from boilers. The idea that a newly emerged species would dictate terms to civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was unthinkable. And if we refuse these terms, asked General Thaxmer, his massive claws scraping against the metal of his chair. Dr. Lee Min-ho stepped forward, his expression serious but not threatening. Then you continue as you always have, knowing that Earth watches, Earth remembers, and Earth will respond to any act of unprovoked aggression with the same precision you witnessed at Sol 3. Lieutenant Kim Nari activated a small device that projected a holographic display showing the current positions of human ships throughout the galaxy. The aliens gasped as they realized that humanity had already established a presence in dozens of star systems, their vessels hidden and watching. We do not seek to conquer or control, Ji-ho continued. We seek only to ensure that the galaxy becomes a place where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them, where silence is respected as much as noise, where intelligence matters more than the size of one's fleet. Counselor Vexnari's tentacles stopped writhing as she considered the implications. You are asking us to fundamentally change how galactic civilization has operated for millennia. We are offering you the chance to evolve, Ji-ho replied, to become something better than you were before. The choice is yours. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some species threatened war, others pleaded for mercy, and a few quietly asked about the defensive technologies humanity had offered to share. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Galactic Accords were rewritten to include strict non-aggression clauses, and Earth became not just a member world, but a guardian of the new peace. Years later, Commander Park Ji-ho stood in Earth's first orbital diplomatic station, watching ships from dozens of worlds docked peacefully at the same platform. Some carried trade goods, others brought scientific data to share, and all flew under the protection of the new galactic treaty. Lieutenant Kim Nari, now promoted to captain, joined him at the observation deck. Any regrets about revealing ourselves? She asked. Jiho watched a human ship glide past, its hull marked with the symbols of both Earth and the Galactic Council. None at all, he said. We spent a century learning to be strong in silence. We get to spend the next century teaching others that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous of all. The galaxy had learned to listen to the stillness and found wisdom there.